White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany was targeted by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in perhaps the worst use of race baiting I've ever seen. Democrat leaders who let riots and looting go unchecked are now fearful that businesses won't ever come back. Plus, Joe Biden goes after President Trump on the economy. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're having a great week. Thanks for joining us if you're new. We're going to start with Kayleigh McEnany versus Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and perhaps the dumbest Twitter war I've ever seen. And it is a perfect example of the elitist, arrogant attitude that comes from the left. These are supposed to be humble public servants, but AOC demonstrates in a big way just how arrogant, elitist, and willing to use race baiting that she is. So this beef all started on Monday. Kayleigh McEnany was holding her press conference, and I'd be remiss if I did like every other left-wing outlet and ignored the actual topic of the briefing, the good news that she was talking about. Economists and other analysts were predicting that in May we'd lose 7.5 million jobs, and instead we added 2.5 million jobs to the economy, a net gain of 10 million jobs. And here's McEnany.
The jobs in this country, we had more than 2.5 million added. The prediction was that 7.5 million jobs would be lost. This was a 10 million swing toward the positive side, and in fact, the greatest number of jobs created in a single month on record.
So that's awesome news. And yes, you would hope that after a record loss of jobs because of the coronavirus shutdown, that you'd have a bounce back, that you'd have a big bounce back. But that was the wild card. We just didn't know. And you knew that the Democrats in the media are banking on the fact that the economy doesn't come back. They want that hanging over President Trump, and it looks like it's bouncing back in a big way. And here's more from the press secretary.
225,000 manufacturing jobs, 464,000 construction jobs, and 1.2 million leisure and hospitality jobs were all added in May.
So that's great stuff. And McEnany went on to point out that the markets responded to the jobs numbers. The Dow is soaring. The NASDAQ hit a record high. And it looks like, from all indications, that the economy is ready to pick up right where it left off, right where President Trump took it before the shutdown. That was the news. It was great jobs news. That was the focus. Then she turned it over to questions. She opened up the briefing for questions. Here was the first one.
So start with John.
Kayleigh, what's the president's thinking on this growing movement to either defund or dismantle police forces across the country? And what reforms does the president think would be appropriate in the wake of the George Floyd killing?
This is unreal. All this important economic information, all this news about jobs, and they start with the idiotic defund the police movement. So McEnany responds, and here's where all the fun begins.
The president is appalled by the defund the police movement. The fact that you have sitting congresswomen wanting to defund the police, notably Rashida Tlaib, notably Biden advisor AOC Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
So that's it. That's where all the beef started. This is how it began. McEnany is asked about the defund the police movement, and she mentions two key left-wing congresswomen, Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who are leading the charge. AOC, she also refers to as a Joe Biden advisor because she is a Joe Biden advisor. And here's where things get dumb. You've got Jake Sherman, who is a left-wing reporter at Politico. He gets on Twitter and he tweets this. Press secretary from the podium, Biden advisor Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, CC AOC. So Sherman tags her in the tweet, and I don't get the whole purpose of the tweet. Is he offended that McEnany referenced Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as a Joe Biden advisor? She is a Joe Biden advisor. So what's the point? I just don't get it. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sees that tweet, and here's what she does in response. Press secretary wouldn't be the first person to mistake a woman of color for having a lower position or title than she does. But Kayleigh, in case you haven't picked up a newspaper in 2 years, I'm a congresswoman. How arrogant and stupid. Seriously? Did she do just even a minor bit of research and maybe actually watched the briefing that references this line that Jake Sherman pointed out, did she do that, or she just responded to Sherman's tweet and brings up lowering the standard for a woman of color? McEnany referred to them as congresswomen, and AOC would have known that if she would have just looked. So McEnany then responded on Twitter with this: "Read the transcript, Congresswoman AOC," and she has the word Congresswoman highlighted from the transcript. So you can see that. So here's the thing though, 15 minutes after AOC put out that first tweet, 15 minutes, that gives plenty of time to say, all right, let me go back and actually check what Kayleigh McEnany said. Maybe I was just race baiting and being arrogant for no reason. She had time to do that, but 15 minutes later, she doubles down and she tweets this: "The press secretary's comment is steeped in a long, hurtful, and horrendous history of stripping women of color of titles and diminishing them to the help. Perhaps she isn't aware that what she did is mired in racist history. If that is the case, I look forward to her apology tomorrow." Good luck with that. McEnany 1, AOC a big 0. She took one tweet and wrapped everything that is wrong with the left in it. You've got arrogance, you've got elitists, you've got race baiting, and you have the facts wrong. All in one tweet. AOC could have done a little bit of research, watch a little clip on the press conference. Instead, she jumps on the, oh, McEnany's being racist idea. Totally wrong. Big fat 0 for AOC. So next, we're going to move on to the Defund the Police movement. But first, if you like the show, if you're new to the show, please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We are growing, folks, and it's all thanks to you. We're making our push for 100K by Election Day. We can do it with your help. So next, I want to move on to the Defund the Police movement in the context of these community businesses, because the juxtaposition shows just how off the media and the left are when they push these agendas. They let rioters and looters burn businesses to the ground, but now they're lamenting businesses that won't come back. They let this happen because of lawlessness, and now they want to defund the police in the name of safety. It absolutely makes no sense. Here's a report from Fox News. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot said it would take a Herculean effort to keep businesses open in disadvantaged neighborhoods after looting and damage that occurred during the first weekend of protests following the death of George Floyd. I've been on calls and text messages with people all day who fought hard to bring economic development to areas of the city, only to see the Walgreens, the CVS, the grocery store, everything vanish in the blink of an eye. Lightfoot said on a call with distraught aldermen, "It's going to take a Herculean effort on the part of all of us to convince businesses not to disappear, to come back. We're prepared to fight that fight." Fight that fight? You let it happen. You let lawlessness rule, not just in Chicago, but in New York and Minneapolis and cities across the country. These Democrat leaders let this happen, and now she's lamenting that they won't come back. There's a Walmart that said it's not going to come back. There's a Target in that area. These are South Side businesses, actually where I was born in Chicago and lived till we moved to Indiana for a while, until finally, as 11 years old, came to Texas, my home state. But this is South Side Chicago. This is where I was born. These businesses are leaving. They don't want to come back, and she's wondering why. And here's more. "I haven't seen blank like this before," Lightfoot said on the call. "The number of places all over the South and West Sides in particular that have been hit today has just been off the charts. Literally hundreds, if not thousands of locations. Big stores, small stores, strip malls, many corner places. It is all over the city." Lightfoot also announced a $10 million commitment from the city to help businesses damaged by the riots last week. So congratulations, Chicago. You get to use your tax dollars to rebuild what you were allowed to destroy. You let this lawlessness run wild. Now your tax dollars are going to be wasted rebuilding businesses that shouldn't have been damaged in the first place. It's absolutely outrageous. Well, that's Chicago. Then there's Minneapolis, where a long-standing manufacturing company that was allowed to burn to the ground says it's leaving the city. It's not coming back. Here's that report. A Minneapolis manufacturing company whose plant burned amid civil unrest following George Floyd's death is leaving the city after nearly 4 decades and taking dozens of jobs with it. The president and owner of Seven Sigma Inc., Chris Weyerbeck, felt inclined to do so after he says he lost trust in public officials during the riots that plagued the city, according to the Star Tribune. "They don't care about my business," said Weyerbeck, told the Star Tribune. "They didn't protect our people. We were all on our own." What's even worse, the city of Minneapolis is now asking for state and federal money to bail them out for the riots and the destruction, the vandalism that they let happen. And here's a report from National Review. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey will seek state and federal aid to rebuild city structures following over a week of looting and rioting, the Minneapolis Star Tribune reported Friday. Some 220 buildings have been damaged and require at least $55 million in repairs, the city's Community Planning and Economic Development Department said earlier this week, noting that the city was not yet ready to produce a credible estimate. You've got to be kidding. They let this happen. They let their own citizens destroy their own city, and now they want federal money. Luckily for us, there's precedent that this will not happen. And here's more. To be realistic, the odds of that happening are at best very difficult, Representative Betty McCollum said. If it is demonstrated that outside provocateurs committed acts of destruction, then there is a clear rationale for an emergency declaration by President Trump. After the 2000 Freddie Gray riots, FEMA denied Maryland Governor Larry Hogan's request for $19 million in aid. So go ahead, destroy your cities. We're not going to pay for it. If these Democrat leaders want to let rioters and looters run amok and destroy these neighborhoods, then guess what? Businesses won't come back, and we are not going to pay for it. It's absolutely outrageous to think so. We've got to draw the line. No aid to cities that let themselves be destroyed. So next we're going to talk about some presidential politics and the economy. But first, I've got to tell you about my friends over at WorldFare. Folks, if you have a picture of your home, they can turn it into a handmade work of art. I have these sketches for every home I've ever lived in. It's up on my wall. People notice it all the time. They always ask about it. Check them out. This makes a great gift, either for someone you know that's moving into a new home, or maybe someone you know who's graduating from college. They can take an iconic building on campus and turn it into one of these sketches. Just go to the link in the description, use coupon code Bobby13 for 10% off your next purchase. All right, so we're going to talk about the economy and presidential politics because Joe Biden is at it again, but President Trump is actually getting some good feedback. You saw the report, 2.5 million jobs added in May. The NASDAQ hits a record high. It breaks 10,000 for the first time ever. And the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office actually has high marks for President Trump. And here's a report from the Washington Times. Congress's chief scorekeeper had high praise for the Trump administration Tuesday, saying its agencies managed to speed out coronavirus aid incredibly quickly, helping moderate the worst economic effects of the COVID-19 downturn. Philip L. Swagel, director of the Congressional Budget Office, said Capitol Hill moved speedily to approve aid, and then the Treasury Department moved quickly and effectively to process the stimulus payments to Americans. So that doesn't sound like the claims of the Democrats at all, that President Trump wasn't taking this situation seriously, that he was too slow to respond. And here's more. The glowing words from Congress's nonpartisan budget watchdog could undercut some news stories that said the agencies were overwhelmed, and complaints from Democrats on Capitol Hill who had accused the Treasury Department of delays in getting payments out the door. One specific allegation was that the stimulus checks were held up in order to get President Trump's signature on them. The Treasury Department said there was no delay. So, we've got strong numbers. We've got compliments from the CBO. We've got an economy that is ready to go. Then we've got Joe Biden coming out and saying that the economy is in bad shape and it actually started before coronavirus. And of course, he's blaming President Trump. And here's Joe Biden. Former Vice President Joe Biden said Tuesday President Trump has squandered the economic expansion created during the Obama-Biden administration, causing an economic recession. Biden said the president had forgotten about the middle class long before COVID-19 pandemic hit the nation, causing millions of people to fall unemployed and businesses to be shuttered. So Biden then added some eye-popping comments that make you wonder if he has any clue what he's saying in general and about the economy in particular. He says things that don't make sense, and you have to wonder, do you know how the economy works? Here's more from Biden. President Trump cut taxes for big corporations and the richest Americans instead of investing in the middle class. Trump drove manufacturing into a recession across the Midwest, and Trump systematically stacked the deck against working families who were struggling to get ahead, Mr. Biden said in a press release Tuesday. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. We don't have the time to get into all the ridiculousness. You know what the best investment is in the middle class? A job. And President Trump delivered that in spades. Record low unemployment, record low. Middle class wages rising faster than the wealthy. These are facts. I don't know what he's talking about. It's just absolutely bizarre. And someone needs to sit down with Biden and give him a lesson on the economy. Maybe this is a result of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being one of his advisors. And she has an economics degree, right? So now maybe it does make sense. So next, we're going to talk about Tom Arnold. And you say, who? Yeah, exactly. He used to be an actor. Now he's just trying to seek relevance, I think, as a left-wing tool. But this time, he's actually inciting violence. And this all began with this left-wing guy, Ben Davis, who was in D.C. He tweeted a picture of police officers, officials, law enforcement officials, who were keeping people away, keeping protesters away from the White House. Here's what he tweeted. Completely unmarked officers in riot gear holding protesters blocks away from the White House. No badges, no insignias, no name tags, nothing. Refused to tell us who they were. Hashtag DC protests. Oh no. So they refused to talk to this left-wing snowflake. He tweets about it. Then Tom Arnold gets on board. He jumps in and he tweets this. Second Amendment is for everyone, including black men with long guns, but it's effing time for us white liberal men to stand up for our brothers and sisters, borrow our dad's hunting rifles, and go nose to nose with Trump's gang of misfit tools. Let's do it. And he tags Rob Reiner, hashtag Black Lives Matter. Are you kidding me? This is inciting violence. How long is this tweet going to be up there? This was posted June 6th. It's now June 10th. I checked this morning. It was still there. He is inciting violence. But what's so funny is he does it in classic liberal fashion. Because what's he going to go grab? His dad's hunting rifle. Because you can't use guns for self-defense. You can only use them for hunting. That's apparently his meaning, his interpretation of the Second Amendment, even though he wants to use the Second Amendment to confront Trump supporters with their guns. But at least it's their dad's hunting rifle. So that's Tom Arnold, folks. And that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. And we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.